Hello, everybody, and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, your weekly look into the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. I'm Mike, joined this week by
Andrew.
Andrew of the caffeinated beverage. So, we are currently tabulating the votes from what you guys have sent in to us. There's not a lot of tabulation involved, folks. It's just that we're recording this before the voting is over. To determine what the next show we're going to watch here on the ECS network is. As of the time we're recording this, it actually looks like Ultraman is winning.
Yes.
So, that might be what won, it might not be. But as of when we're recording this, voting is still open. So we are eagerly anticipating you telling us. Probably somewhere at the end of this episode, you will see me again in a very different backdrop. Announcing the winner of our contest, because we have resorted to bribery, and we have a nifty little something in a box that we're giving away. So, this week, though, we are going to take a look at Uchuu Keiji Gavan the movie, or Space Sheriff Gavan the movie from 2012. As with most things Tokusatsu on this show, it is the first time that Andrew has ever seen this.
Yep.
So, But the basic gist of the 2012 movie was that Space Sheriff Gavan originally was around in 1982. It was the very first Metal Hero in the Metal Hero franchise. And the show went over like gangbusters, spawning an entire franchise, many successors, including two subsequent Space Sheriff series, Shiravan and Shider. The original show starred Kenji Oba as Gavan, and he would reprise his role as Gavan several decades later, or at least a couple of decades later, in the movie Gokaiger vs. Gavan, which was also an anniversary film for the franchise. In that movie, his appearance went over so well with fans and all involved that they decided to bring back the Space Sheriffs and attempt to give birth to the franchise again. That is this movie. This movie has a brand new Space Sheriff Gavan in the form of Geki. It is very much the passing of the torch. It involves them trying to revive the Maku Space Syndicate's big bad guy Don Horror from the original Gavan television series. Now, I will admit, I've probably only seen the first 2 or 3 episodes of the original Gavan series. It is coming up on the Denzi Blitz, so I will be watching the entire blasted thing. But, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But this movie, much slicker looking, obviously, than the original series. This was a major motion picture. I remember we were talking about that as we were watching. First impressions of the Gavan movie. I've seen this several times before, but this is your first encounter.
I liked it.
Okay. What was it that stood out that made you really think, hey, this is pretty cool?
Well, honestly, the costumes weren't that bad.
Right.
Except for the one with the horn. That was kind of weird. But other than that, actors were good. Plot was kind of halfway decent.
Mm-hmm.
Major love triangle thing was weird, but that's everything.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Other than that, I mean, even the special effects weren't even half bad.
Yeah. I remember when I first watched this movie, I had seen Gavan versus, or Gokaiger versus Gavan, rather. I had seen that already. And I, for whatever reason, and I'm the same way with comic books, I love the idea and the concept of the legacy hero, where it's a hero that has been around and eventually passes the torch to a successor.
Yeah.
I've always loved that concept. It's one of the reasons I love DC Comics. It's one of the reasons that I might be in the minority. I actually liked it when they made Bucky Barnes Captain America for a while. I enjoy all of these things. It's the reason I hated the New 52 with a passion. So, the idea of the legacy hero has always appealed to me. And it's a concept that is downright alien to Tokusatsu, just by its very nature. Tokusatsu heroes are sort of one-and-done seasonal type things. So you don't really ever get the passing of the torch of the name goes from one to the next to the next. Which, if you something that seems like a very Japanese concept.
Yeah.
So this one, to my knowledge, is the first time I've ever seen it actually happen, where they do pass the torch completely. It's not some, hey, our grandkids are going to take up these roles ever how many years later, epilogue in the last 5 minutes of an episode of a series. They've done that a couple of times. But I really enjoyed the concept. I don't know the actor who played Geki off the top of my head, but I enjoyed him in the role. You could feel him grow up a little bit over the course of the movie.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very important.
Especially like right when the torch was passed, where it was pretty much just beat into him.
Yes. You kind of looked at that sideways when we were watching. Yeah. Like, why is he beating why is Kenji Oba beating the hell out of this poor kid? That is a very Japanese concept of, I will beat you until you understand, kind of thing. I will beat the manhood into you if need be. And it was, and I might be phrasing it wrong, but the idea of men only understand each other through their fists, and this is how we express our feelings and things like that, is a concept that pops up in a lot of anime and films and things of that nature. So it's, I don't think, really odd to see it here. I liked the acting. Anytime I get to see Kenji Oba on screen, Kenji Oba is utterly fantastic. When this movie was made, Kenji Oba, I believe, was in his mid-50s and is still out there doing all of his own stuff. He was an incredible stuntman for many, many years, and still is. And he is so well respected for American fans, where you would have known or seen Kenji Oba before, if you are not a tokusatsu fan, he was in Kill Bill. One of the highest, I guess, compliments would be the best way of putting it, that you can receive as an actor in Hollywood is what is referred to as a single card credit, where your name appears on screen alone with no one else. And that's usually reserved for the top shelf of actors. There's always I remember a gag from the commentary on Cannonball Run, where director Hal Needham noted in the commentary that they had something like 16 or 17 single card credits because that's how many A-list celebrities were actually in the movie. Well, with Kill Bill, several of the actors obviously got single card credits, names like Uma Thurman, Carradine, Lucy Liu, a great number of the stars that we would think of here in America. Sonny Chiba, who plays Hattori Hanzo, gets a single card credit, but Kenji Oba was in that movie as his assistant, and Kenji Oba got a single card credit from Quentin Tarantino. So anytime you get to see him on screen, I agree with you. I like the costumes. They put the money on the screen. Yeah. The only thing with the effects that actually struck me as odd was anytime they had to rely on CG, it got a little dodgy.
They did.
Because, like, what did you think of the ship? The Doru is the translation that's in our version. But the entire thing, or just the dragon? We'll start with so Gavin has a spaceship that is a UFO with a attachment underneath that turns into a dragon. So initially, like, the whole ship.
Initial impression, which I told you, I was like, that's a UFO!
Yes.
All you saw was the lights, and that was it.
Right.
That was their whole CG thing. It was like, beam them up, disappeared, couldn't see diddly squat. But then once you actually did get to see it, it was pretty decent. It was just, their whole models, you could see little choppy pieces. A little bit. I find myself wondering, because one of the things that we'll often say when we look at the effects of old Toku shows is we'll sometimes say, we really aren't doing it any favors watching it on an HD TV big screen. The thing is, this movie was meant to be seen this way, so it kind of makes me wonder a little bit sometimes. Because this movie the movie's only 5 years old. It was meant to be seen on a massive movie theater screen. Once it turns into our dragon, what do you think of the dragon?
Well, from I can't. I'm still trying to remember which episode we watched of the original.
Probably the first one.
Yeah.
First or second.
But I did like how it was, more than just like the fire breathing part. It was actually like laser eyes and stuff. And although, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't really move that much. Like the dragon itself didn't really move.
In the original show, it didn't move much at all. Yeah. But that's because the original show it's a practical model.
Right.
In this one, you get a little bit of the wavy parts. I don't know if it was a choice where they were, except for towards the very beginning when it first transforms and you see it do the roar and stuff. Yeah. I don't know if it was a conscious decision trying to mimic the range of motion the original model had, because that's one thing this movie does very well, and that is pay homage to its source material. It almost every bit of music in the Gavan movie, which I love the music in this movie, almost every bit of the music is simply a rearrangement, updated of music from the old TV show, with two exceptions. When Kenji Oba shows up, that is literally nothing more, but it is a note-for-note remake of his fight music from the original show. And then when we see the end credits, it is a note-for-note re-recording of the original theme song. But I don't know if it was they wanted to mimic what range of motion the model had, or what. I almost feel like if that was what they were going for, I wish they'd used a model.
Yeah.
Because model technology now is head and shoulders above what it was in 1982. They could have done a lot more, I think, with a model and a green screen.
Yeah.
My big gripe, as far as the effects, anytime it's a transformation, the costumes, any of the practical effects, basically anything that's practical looks good. Looks very good. When they start edging into CG land, it starts getting a little dicey. Yeah. Thank goodness Joe Budnick isn't here, because he would crucify parts of this movie. The overall plot. The plot of this movie is basically the passing of the torch and a love triangle. We have Geki, aka Gavan. We have Itsuki, who is our love interest, who is a scientist that is acquainted with both Gavan and a guy named Tuya, who turns out to be our big bad for the movie. In something that we probably saw coming about halfway through the movie. So the idea of the love triangle, it's not the greatest action adventure story of all time, but at least it wasn't poorly executed, and at least I don't think they split the focus more than they needed to. They had two plot lines that don't interfere with each other: the passing of the torch and the love triangle.
Right.
What did you think of the love triangle plot line and the way they played it out?
All right, so his partner, she was kind of useless.
Oh, Shelley?
Yeah.
Bird bit.
Girl.
Yeah, a little bit.
She, to me, it was one of those. You got the other three. That was a big love triangle, and then she kind of just like thrown into it, and then they're trying to make something out of it, and then it just stops, and then it's just like.
I think she's almost there, supposed to be like the audience. I almost feel like of anyone in the movie. So traditionally, the Space Sheriffs have a female sidekick. Actually, traditionally, Metal Heroes had a female sidekick, not just the Space Sheriffs. It would continue in other shows. And in this case, it is a character named Shelley. It should be noted that Geki's version of Gavan and Shelley, his sidekick, his partner, both debut in the Super Sentai series Go Busters. So we first see her there, where she's about as useful as she is here in the movie. But there is a later movie where they do make a big deal out of her. But if anyone is the audience identification figure in this movie, I almost feel like it's her, because she's the one that keeps giving the commentary on the love triangle as it's happening. I don't think she's part of it, but she's the one that goes to everybody and goes, "No, do you not realize that he's into you or she's into you, or why are you being stupid?" Or I think that's probably her role in the movie.
Yeah.
They give her one nice fight scene outside of a laboratory. They do that. Shelley is played by the actress who was Shinken Yellow on Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. There's a lot of Toku alumni in this movie. What did we think of? What do you think of the cameo of the other two space sheriffs? I know that you kind of sat there and was like, "Oh, well, there's still the glory," but
it was short.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's really not that much.
There's not. It
was a short cameo.
Yeah. To me, for the purpose of this, it was fan service.
Yeah.
It's the 30th anniversary of the Space Sheriffs, so you might as well include them all. Mm-hmm. There were only 3 Space Sheriff series. So I get that. The casting choices were pretty cool. It's Kamen Rider Birth and Geki Violet, respectively, from, again, more Tokusatsu alumni. They were very faithful to the originals. They actually get over enough that those two actually did get their own subsequent movies. So there is a Sharavan movie and a Scheider movie with those actors coming back to reprise their roles. Cool. So that's pretty cool. And I think Geki's actually in both of them as Gavin. So it's almost a thing where I looked at it and said, I bet they don't know if they're getting another one. So, because the intent was always to revive the franchise, is what I'd always read. And you never know going in. Was the first movie a hit because they were sharing billing with the 35th anniversary of Super Sentai? Or was it a hit because Gavin was actually in it and that helped? So, was there anything about the movie that just you looked at and you went, "Oh God, please stop that"?
Not really. Nothing I can really think of.
I do remember as we were watching. I remember there's a point where Itsuki is being carried through a tunnel by Brighton, and you sat there as like, he better not be the other guy.
Yep. Yeah, it was the whole giveaway of the entire thing. I was like, son of a bitch.
Well, when I first watched the movie, I kind of sat there and thought to myself, does it have to be this other dude? I almost felt, and I don't know if I've changed my opinion or not, I almost felt like the idea of having the love triangle story was superfluous. I thought it was unnecessary originally. Watching it back here again, it doesn't to me, it doesn't now help or hinder the movie either way.
Yeah.
I thought the passing of the torch story was done much better. Let me ask this: what did you think when you saw? Because you're coming in this having no familiarity with Gavin at all.
Right.
What did you think when you saw the two Gavins side by side? They do the whole Maku space thing. Your first experience with cat drugs in a tokusatsu.
Yeah.
So we'll start there. What did you think of Maku space? For you out there who have no clue what we're talking about, all the Maku monsters have the ability to teleport themselves and other people into Maku space, or the translation we watched called it the Maku dimension. In this dimension, all bets are off.
You lose.
Yeah, it's all cat drugs. Anything can happen and will. And the power of the enemy monsters are always tripled. Nobody actually knows why it's tripled. That's just what they say in the show. But it's usually just a bunch of wackadoo stuff, to borrow a Daveism. So what did you think of the Maku space in this, with the two Gavins fighting their way through it?
Very trippy. Lots of swords. Lots of giant swords.
So we start off with the two Gavins falling onto a stage at a mall for what is obviously a live show gone wrong. And the monster and his girlfriend are sitting in the front row as the monster explains what Maku space is. The chase is on with all the gumps through the mall. Plenty of lawn furniture involved.
Lots of lawn furniture.
And lots of shaky cam. More shaky cam than I would have liked, really. I give them credit, though, for trying to do the one continuous shot down the hallway. Most of it's actually one tracking shot. There is a cutaway or two, but when they cut back, you can tell it's still the same tracking shot. So there's that. Then there's they get out of the mall and they start running down an alley where the monster's giant sword starts popping out of here, there, and everywhere.
It was weird with the little minion shinobi people.
Mm-hmm.
They were just kind of there.
Yeah.
They didn't really fight. They just kind of like chased them.
Yes, it was get the heck away.
Yeah.
They had to fight them in the alley because they couldn't go forward anymore, and the minions are coming from behind. But then we're suddenly in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because here comes a rolling rock down the alleyway. So swords on one end and rock on the other. We duck through a door, and I want to say after they duck through the door and fall, they wind up falling into. That's when they first fall into a quarry.
Yep.
And they roll down a hill for a little bit through explosions and crud. When they stand up, they fall in another hole and wind up on a train where the monster is now the conductor.
That was funny.
And all the passengers are knife-wielding axe murderers, apparently, trying to kill our two heroes.
People?
Yes, nothing to them. That was tame. Yeah, the old TV show was trippier, generally speaking. This one was fairly tame by comparison to some of the things I've seen. And when we have the big hero moment of the two Gavins side by side, they transform. They're going to fight off and save the day. What did you think of the of Gavin's transformation and the whole narration over it? Let's see that again in slow motion shtick.
Drawn out.
Really?
Yeah. It's like I know that's a whole big thing where they explain how they do it.
Mm.
It's like beamed onto them or whatever.
Mm.
But that's all you gotta see. It's like it's there.
For the Space Sheriff or Metal Heroes really is the only series they ever do that with. The idea was supposed to be in the original series that Gavin could transform so quickly and was so fast that you couldn't see it happen. And so
they did say like
0.05 seconds is how long it takes him to transform. So, and the only part of the narration they left out was, let's see that again in slow motion, because they actually would say that on the old one. And they take you through the whole thing again. They do it in Gokaiger versus Gavin, too. Mm-hmm. When Gavin transforms first and they do the whole Gavin transforms and it's the Gavin style narration. And then the Gokaigers transform, and they don't do the typical stock footage transformation sequence. And then you have the Gokaiger narrator come on, and, and the Gokaigers transform, and it's faster than Gavin's.
Yeah.
And then let's see that again in slow motion. They do their transformation in slow motion over again. It's kind of funny. So the fight scenes in this, to me, that is one of the standout things about this movie is the action and the action choreography. I absolutely love.
Very well done.
Because I know you like a lot of superhero movies. You watch a lot of kung fu stuff or martial arts movies. Okay. First things first. I know I kind of harp on it. More or less, in my opinion, and it's may or may not be valid to all people, I look at Kenji Oba not unlike how I look at Jackie Chan these days. These are two guys that are up there in years who deserve all the respect in the world because they can still go out there and do this stuff.
Outdo most people nowadays.
Yeah. Kenji Oba, in my opinion, in this movie, and he did the same thing in Gokaiger versus Gavin. In my opinion, he made everybody else in this movie look real bad by comparison. So when it to me, is it not one of the coolest, most badass superhero entrances ever for Kenji Oba to crash, drive a car through a wall, get out, kick everybody's asses, get the kid, throw him in the car, roll across the hood, and then take off again. What did you think of Kenji Oba in action, seeing this?
Well, just that one scene or the whole thing?
Well, we'll start with there, and then and we can spill that over into, because he has a couple other fight scenes throughout.
Well, for that one, it was just like...
That was the showcase. That was to show off Kenji, so...
That was him just basically, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to whoop your tail, and that's it. You ain't going to do nothing about it.
Yeah.
That was good.
It was.
Oh God, what was that one part? It's like right when he got him, like picked him up, threw him in there.
He throws him in, and he rolls over the hood of the car.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say car. He actually rolls jumps over the hood of a Jeep.
And that's pretty tall.
Yeah. And he's not a tall man.
No, he's very short.
So
that did make me giggle a little bit, just
to see him dive over the hood of a Jeep. Yeah, it's amusing to sit there and watch him. It's something that gets lost in a lot of tokusatsu shows today. I will admit, and I feel this way a little oddly because I was in the wrestling business for a long time. I actually feel the same about the wrestling today as compared to back in the day as well. I felt there was something more visceral about everything Kenji Oba did compared to other people because he is seasoned enough to show the emotion and have the facials and even in the action scene act with his whole body, not just go through the motions. Geki did that very well in this movie too. So, and there wasn't really anybody that couldn't do that in this film. But Kenji Oba, all of his action stuff, it comes off feeling to me somewhat legitimate, but he also makes it look so damn easy.
Yeah, it's super easy.
It just looks so fluid, more fluid than you would expect. If you looked at him, your initial thing is going to be that this is an old dude, and then suddenly breaks up.
Speaking of that being fluid, like whenever they were doing the transformation scene, just watch his movement. You could see that was more practice, and he didn't really have to try.
Yeah. Whereas, just like, because that's one point where you can see the two of them together. When you see Kenji's character Retsu and you see Geki side by side doing the transformation sequence, you kind of look at it and you go, this is the guy that's been doing this for 30 years. This is the guy that hasn't. That's been doing it for maybe 30 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Kenji Oba actually choreographed the original transformation sequence. I know he did some action choreography in his day. I know he was a stunt coordinator in his day. He started as a stuntman and became an actor afterwards. But the Metal Hero transformations were always strange to me when I first started looking at them because they have no transformation device. Kamen Rider has the belt, Super Sentai has a changer or morpher, takes on different shapes and sizes, different points. Metal Heroes don't have that. They just do a bunch of really cool looking poses and then suddenly presto changeo armor. One thing that I had mentioned as we were watching the movie, and the fact that folks out there might not know, the Gavan costume was actually the inspiration for Robocop.
Yep.
Could you see that as you were watching it? Could you? When you look at it, what do you see in there and go, yeah, they stole that for Robocop. They stole this.
Well, part of the helmet, definitely.
Yeah.
Because that whole back piece was definitely Robocop.
Yeah.
And then bottom, all that was total Robocop.
Yeah, I mean, the Robocop, I think, took the Gavan costume and simplified it down.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bells and whistles to the Gavan costumes.
The super difference was the LEDs up here.
Yeah. So, and even the fact that in this movie there are two different Gavan costumes, because there's one costume for new Gavan and one for old Gavan. They actually refer to Geki's version as Gavan Type G. So there actually is a technically different name for it. So there's nothing you didn't like, outside of maybe the obvious reveal of who the bad guy is about 20 minutes before the movie told you.
Yeah.
If I knock this movie for anything, it's going to be some dodgy CG.
Yeah.
That's really about it. The action's good. The story's is pretty good. It's easy to screw up a love triangle and just make it seem horrible. It's easy to screw up passing of the torch. They didn't screw up either one of them, and they got the passing of the torch down pretty damn well. So nothing I didn't like. If you were going to, someone asked you about this movie, what would you say? Yay, nay? What would you tell them? See it? That good to me. Would you consider this if it was someone that had never seen tokusatsu at all before? Would you consider this something that would be worthwhile for them to watch?
Yeah.
I guess for you this is actually
this is a good question.
It's a good question.
This is still brand new for me.
Yeah. Did you feel, as someone who really is kind of going through Toku 101, did you feel lost watching this movie?
Maybe half a second, but that was it. Just trying to figure out who everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, once it was laid out, and that was the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, if that.
It was fantastic.
Awesome. I would consider this actually Toku 101, which probably one of the reasons when we watched it together today, because you genuinely don't have to know much about the original Gavan television series to get this movie, but it gives you an idea of what the Metal Hero franchise felt like. It is very faithful to the franchise as a whole. The only thing that might be bad is if you can't deal with older, sometimes cheesier effects, then watching this, which is very slick and well produced, and then going back at least a decade to watch the older Metal Hero stuff might be jarring. But if you can watch old school special effects and not judge them for being old school special effects,
don't be judgy.
Yeah, that's one thing you've heard me say on this show a dozen times, which is you have to make your judgment on how good or bad the effects are based on when it was done. Good special effects in 2012 are going to look so much better than good special effects in 1982. So, if you can watch the older show and the older effects with an open mind, then this is a really good introduction to the Metal Hero franchise. I know that you've been really wanting to watch Winspector.
Yes.
Which we actually did watch an episode of. We haven't done a review of it, basically because we're still waiting to see from our end, what wins the poll. But there are plenty more Metal Hero shows where these came from. On here, we'll talk about them. So, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Was there anything, any one scene, I should probably ask this too, any one scene in here that you just was like, this was your moment, this is the scene you loved? I've already gushed over Kenji-O, y'all can guess what mine is.
Oh man, let's see. Honestly, that was the passing of the torch, because that made me giggle.
Mm.
I'm sorry, just even if it is a common thing.
Him beating the crap out of him in the river?
That's just funny.
Yeah. I mean, that was a very interesting moment in the movie.
Yeah.
A pretty cool one to watch. We know what mine was. And I would be remiss if I didn't put this out there too. The female villain in this piece, who is the only Maku villain without a mask, I can't remember her name to save my life, but she did a tremendous job. And to my knowledge, this was her first actual acting role. She'd been a suit actor up until this movie. But she is another highlight of the film because she has some really good action scenes herself and does come off as pretty much genuinely menacing, as do all the monsters in this at different points, because Geki gets his ass beat for most of the movie.
You do get to stare at her forehead a lot, though.
Yeah, there is that. So, well, folks, that about wraps us up. Uchuu Keiji Gavan, Space Sheriff Gavan the movie. Get a chance, check it out. Until next time, folks, I'm Mike.
I'm Andrew.
We'll see you next time on Denzicaster.